When we think APIs, we need to think about security. Who are our intended audience? You see, most applications are full of sensitive data. Think about a payroll system. It has people's salary. Think about a national identity system. It has people's sensitive information. So you want to make sure that your APIs are secure and people who have access to them are the people that are intended to see that data. So one way that we can secure our APIs is to use what we call JSON Web Tokens. So you might ask, what is a JSON Web Token? So it is the authenticity of both parties that the data they're sharing has not been tampered with. So you want party A and party B to both confirm that this is the data that we sent, this is the data that I've received. Okay, so this technology is used to implement authentication and authorization in most programming languages. Could be Java, could be C#, could be Ruby, could be Python. So how does it function at a high level? You'll see that at first, before you think about retrieving data from an API, there has to be an authentication phase. So what you would do is, as a client, you're going to send a request to the server, which has your username and the password. The server is going to authenticate the username and the password. And once it does authenticate that, it will generate a token. And that token will be passed back to the client. And now for the client to access data within that API, they're going to provide the request to get the data as well as the token. Usually it's done in the header, which we'll see in code. And once that request gets to the server, it will validate the token. Does it exist? Is it still feasible? Because it also expires. And once it validates that, it will go and get you the data that you need. So let's implement this in Visual Studio. All right, so here we are in Visual Studio. Let's go to create a new project. And we're going to select an ASP.NET Core API. Click Next. We're going to call it, so let's just assume it's recruits.api. And the name could just be recruits JWT. Hit Next. And just leave it as it is and just click Create. Now I have a set of steps here, code snippets. I don't want to be spending time typing. I'll just go over it and just explain what it is really doing. I'm going to include the snippet together with the GitHub in the GitHub repo, so it will be there. So don't worry. So our app has been created. So I want us to remove the remove the weather focus controller. So delete that and delete the weather focus class. All right. Okay, so after deleting, what's our first step? First of all, we need to install the packages that will allow us to use the JSON Web Tokens. So there are two. I'm gonna copy that. And I want you to right click on the API project, manage NuGet packages, and just paste that in. Let's install that. Okay, as it's installing, let's copy the other one. Let's also search for that. All right, install that. Perfect. So now we have the packages that will allow us to use the JSON Web Tokens. The first thing we'll do is you need to add secret keys. So there are things that will be needed for you to when your app creates the token. You don't need to know the key. That's used for authentication, and then the issuer and the audience. So let's add this into our app settings.json, because this could change. In a test environment, you could have a test key, and in production, you could have a production key. So there's need to put it here so that you can change it without really compiling, right? So comma there and copy this. So this could be anything, okay? Right. So this would be used for creation. You could put them in code, but then you'd have to recompile. So this is the most ideal place to put it. Now, since we're going to use JWT, then we need to add it in our dependency injection container, which is this. This is our container here. If you need further classes on this, check in the description of this video. I've done a lot of discussions on the dependency injection container. So I'm going to copy this and let's just bring it in. So let's say adding JWT to the dependency injection container over there. All right. What are we saying? All right, let's first of all bring those in. Control dot. All right. Control dot text. Control dot tokens. All right. We're saying we have this builder over here. All right. So saying on that builder, on the services, add authentication, right? So that's the scheme. And you're getting the key from the app settings because this has a key. JWT object has a key there. So that's why you see we're saying JWT get key. All right. And we're just adding the audience and pretty much the basics here. So we have added JWT to our dependency injection container. All right, that's the third step. And then you need to add the authentication. Now, if you go down here, you'll see that you've got add authorization. This is a pipeline. So order matters. If you put authentication after authorization, it's not going to work because you can't authorize before authenticating. You have to let somebody in and then give them what they can do inside, right? So we're going to add authentication. Forgive me if I put the wrong spelling. Dot use authentication. So order is important in the HTTP pipeline. Right. The next thing would be what? Let's create users and tokens. So for you to, as we discussed earlier, for you to validate, you need to have a username and password, right? So let's create a folder called models. All right, so in this video, I'm not going to use a database. I'll just store them here, but we can extend it to use a database. And I have some videos on Entity Framework. You could just extend that. So create two classes. One should be users. The other should be models. So we're going to have users. Users, which have the username and password. The other one should be tokens. So add class. Now this is now the actual token which will be given to your initial request to authenticate and get that token. All right. Okay. So for the user, you need the username and password. Users, you need 2. And usually this complaints will just say, before you start complaining, string.empty. All right, we just copy that. Okay, so these 2 will be used for authentication. Then we're gonna need to have the tokens. So you're gonna get the token in a refresh token. I think I might do a video on how to use refresh tokens after this one, should time allow. So check out the playlist. Okay, so token. Let's just copy that. Right. So this users will be used for authentication. The token is going to give you back the token. And what do we need? So we're going to use the repository pattern. Although I've seen guys comment about it, how bad it is in the comments, but I would say in tech you have to be pragmatic. Use what really makes sense. So repository. So this will be responsible for creating the tokens, right? So it'll be an interface. Let's call it, I'm going to call it iToken repository. All right. So put it there. and it should have a method called authenticate. Okay, so it returns a token. It takes in the users. All right, and then let's get a class called token repository that will implement this interface. So let's go there, add class. Okay, repository, and this has to inherit from that repository, and it's going to throw an error because it wants you to implement the authenticate, that method over there. Nice. What's the code saying here? So first of all, I'm going to give it a dictionary that has the username and password. So if you have admin, it should authenticate. If you've got password. So it should authenticate. But this idea should be in a database. But this video, we're just trying to show you how to implement the JWT. And then for you to generate a token, I said these things in the app settings, these things come in handy. So there has to be a way for you to get this in this file. So how do you get that? We have what we call the configurations. So the I configuration will be used. So this interface will be used for you to go out there and get whatever is there via the configuration. All right. So I want you to bring in a constructor. I want to use constructor dependency injection. So you could just copy this. So you want your class to take in that I configuration on creation. So configuration should equal to that configuration. All right. Now let's implement the actual authenticate. What do we need to actually authenticate? So I'll just copy whatever is in here and just tell you what it does. Okay, so we're saying, I'm just bringing the things it relies on. Okay, so I'm gonna go through it real quick. Claims. Go through the user records in any of the users, right? If you find these things in a dictionary, if you don't find them, return now. It has failed, right? If it's there, then we have authenticated, right? So if we have authenticated, so I would say here, we have authenticated. Then if we authenticate, we're going to use that key, which we have in our app settings, using the configuration there. And the claims are going to come from the users and names, which you've given on top of there. So that you're giving the user a claim. And at the end of it, you are just creating the token. And once you create it, you're going to return it. So that's pretty much what you're doing. So there we are. So this will create for us a token. And from there, let's create a controller that want to give access to the clients who want to play with our API. So I'm going to call it recruits controller, because these are super secret recruits to the CIA or whatever agency you like. So let's use one with read-write actions. Let's call it recruits controller. So recruits, like so. So first of all, our recruits controller will need to use the repository for authentication, right? So we need that will be a dependency there. So we're going to use also constructor dependency injection. So I want you to come here, CTOR for the constructor, and we're going to use the I token repository. Let me just copy it from here. All right, so copy it from there. Copy token repository, like so. Control dot to bring it in, and go to the token repository. Control dot, and then create an sign. I'm a big fan of underscores, so I'm gonna put an underscore there, like so. All right, so we'll look at our assets over there. So we want to have a controller that just returns the list of records. All right. like so. So if you hit this controller, it's going to return the super secret recruits. All right. Now we also need to authenticate. All right. So let's just remove all of this. All right, all the way down there. So this allow anonymous. Okay, I'll talk about it later in a minute. So I'm going to remove this. Let me comment it out. Okay. So we're saying we're going to give it users, and we're going to go to authenticate. And authenticate is a function which we see here. If it authenticates, it will jump this line and it will create a token, and it will give back the token, right? So if whatever comes is not now, then we have authenticated, then we're going to return the token. If it's now, then we're going to tell them it's not authorized. So this function will be used to authenticate. Now, the idea of having a web token is I'm going to do this without having the JWT work first. We're going to do this without authentication, and then you see where authentication now makes sense. So I want you to, okay, first of all, we have to register this token in our dependency injection container, right? So let's go to absence program.cs rather, and we're gonna say here, it's fine. Registering services, like so. So you can say on your builder, on services, let's go with add scoped. Then your interface has to be, so give it the interface and give it the implementation. So it's going to implement the actual class. I've got a very good overview or deep down of dependency injection. So it's going to be in the description. So now here we are. All right. I'm going to press Control F5. Then you're going to see how now the JWT comes into play. All right, so if I go to get recruits, you'll see that the recruits come. So everybody who has access to this API, who knows where this API exists, is going to get the recruits. But we're trying to secure that, okay? That's why there's this post method here. Now, browsers don't have a post method built in. So I am going to use Postman for this. Okay, so you are seeing that you're able to get the recruits. Now let's make sure we secure that. So I want you to open the recruits, and we might as well close the browser now. So open the recruits, and I want you to go on top here and add a decorator. Call it authorize. This will now make anybody who accesses, so authorize, we'll put authorize on a controller. So whatever is inside the controller, be it this get, be it this post, it will need you to authorize, to authenticate first. I know it says authorize, but it means authentication. So it will require you to authenticate that. Now if I press Control F5 again to see what happens, you will see that let's wait for it to load. If I do get and then I do get, try it out, execute, it's gonna bring you a 401, which means unauthorized. So that now is secure. You need to get authentication first. Now, if I go to the post again and try it out, it's gonna bring a 401 again. All right. But we don't want the post to bring a 401 because this one is the one you use to authenticate. That's why, let's close this. That's why you see that there is a decorator here called allow anonymous. All right. So allow anonymous, if you put it on a method, for instance, authenticate, you will be able to hit this endpoint without authentication. That's what we want. That's why you see this one doesn't have allow anonymous, because we want you to verify. We want you to not verify, but rather we want you to tell us that you're authenticated. Then we'll give you that endpoint. Okay. So now I have put allow anonymous here, and in our token repository we have a password called admin. Okay. So let's press Ctrl F5 again and see what happens. We press Ctrl F5 again. So my postman has loaded. Nice. If we go to post and we try it out, we put here the name as admin. The name as admin. Password as admin. And click execute. It will give us a token here, you see? So this token is the one that will be used for authentication. If I go to the gate, try it out, and I execute, I'm going to get a 401. So for me to use this, I have to use a token. And then you see that the problem with this is the browser doesn't allow you to use to add headers. So I'm going to use Postman. I'm going to say all right, so where is my API? My API is in port 401, so I can just copy this over here. I could copy this and bring it over there. And this is a post request, so I'm going to put post over there. The body takes in, no, it's a get request, so it's a get request. So there's no body. Sorry about that. So if I hit from here, I should get the same 401. SS, and I'm going to verify. Let's disable that. So if I hit this, I get a 401 unauthorized. So what I need now in the headers is to have something called bearer, and bearer takes in the token which I have generated here. So I'm going to copy this token. How do we copy that? I want to copy the token all the way. So bearer, I'm going to give it a value. Now I'm going to click send. And I'm getting an unauthorized. No, I'm kind of worried it's a header. All right, I need to put a bearer token over there. So I need to add the token over here. Not necessarily there. Let's see. All right, so I've added the bearer here in the authorization token, and it's given me. So I have first of all gotten using my, because if I put a wrong username over there, it's not going to give me a token. It's going to say unauthorized. So using that token, we were able to authenticate and give us data. Now there's some people who say, well, I prefer to use Swagger. I want to have my my authorization on this page. Don't worry. ASP.NET Core also supports that. So let's close this. And for you to implement that, all you need to do is bring in this line of code here. All right, so this one just allows you to, so go to your dependency injection container. You see that there is add swagger gen here. So I'm going to replace this with that. So in the add swagger gen, we've added in a few methods. So modules. All right, so we're just saying definition, add a bearer. The requirement is a bearer using OAuth 2. All right, now let's press Ctrl F5. So for those who want to work solely in the browser, it's possible. You see there's authorized there now. So it means, first of all, let's get the token. And once we get the token, let's put admin. I was making a mistake. Admin. Click execute. It gives you the token. Now you could copy that token. And you could come on top here and say type bearer, and you paste it in, then authorize. So if that authorizes you, you could say get and try it out, execute, and there you go, you get that. So at this juncture, thanks for being with me. You've been able to add security to an API. Now only those that have access to your username and password can actually play with your API. So if this has given you value, please comment, like, share, subscribe, and have a good night.